Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Perspective. We'll be talking about the mini budget as it came in the assembly yesterday and how the reaction, of course, we've seen as far as the opposition is concerned. Is there really a reaction? We want to talk about that, whether that's a token reaction. Has the opposition really opposed this bill? How do they want to go forward, move forward as far as opposing is concerned? Of course, there's a lot of talk about how this is going to fuel inflation, it's going to fuel price hike. It's, of course, according to the finance minister, it's storm in a teacup. He says it doesn't mean anything as far as price hike inflation for the common man is concerned. He was quite categorical about saying all of those things in his press conference. He said that it is a case of the opposition making it something. There are a lot of conspiracy theories fueling the capital about, of course, the last week was about no confidence motion, which again, the performance in the assembly as far as the opposition is concerned, with the opposition saying things like this is only going to create more and more problems for the common man. The finance minister's rebuttal, his opposition to all of this. What is the exact position as far as the mini budget is concerned, and how problematic is it going to be for this government is what we want to talk about as far as politics is concerned, as far as the future of course, the PTI is concerned, in terms of the polls that happened in KPK very recently, the changes within the party. Is the government concerned? Is the PTI itself concerned, or is it really just storm in a teacup? All of that today on Perspective. I have with me Ahmed Zafar Durrani, who's President Re-Energy. Thank you for joining us today. I have also with me Ahmed Hassan Mughal, who's an economic expert, also former President Islamabad Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for joining us today. We have with us Dr. Salman Shah, who's advisor to CM. Thank you for being with us today. Ji, Amir Saab, like we were earlier talking about, you said you don't quite agree why there is so much critique over this bill.
Yeah, thank you very much.
I don't know if you were being sarcastic or not, but what's your opinion?
No, I mean, I was being very real because I see some rays of hope in this mini budget. Okay. And number one, my first criticism is, why is this a mini budget? This should have been done at the time of the formation of the earlier budget. It's not that the IMF conditionalities have changed. Okay. I think over-optimism that drove budgetary discussions at the time of the formation of the annual budget is, so basically, the first thing, my criticism on this is, this should have been done earlier at the time of the main budget, and which shows, number two, thereby the sort of, how do you call it, either over-optimism or really inadequacy of the team that's sitting in the Q block, right? Okay. And secondly, I think that if you realistically look at this budget, saying that it's going to reduce inflation tomorrow, the answer is no. Okay. You marry this with if we get a full clearance of the State Bank Autonomy Bill, we're going to have a rough ride over the next 6 months to 12 months, and that's to be expected. Okay. I think the second criticism, the big one for me, is that wow, and how come bipartisan discussions did not take place way before this? I mean, we've had almost 13 months to discuss this with the People's Party, with the PMLN, and with, you know, the JUIF, given it's the emerging party in KP. So to me, those are more frightening factors. The rest of it, if we want to go into details,
you're fine with it. You think it's okay? It's eventually going to come to it's going to be an eventual.
Well, I mean, it's
budget.
not fine because in a way we are going back to, you know, sort of curbing border imports and basically curbing free markets in some ways. But I think the government has been unable to explain why it's doing certain things, right?
Okay, Amir Saab, I want to ask you a few simple questions that I think should concern the common man. You know, even according to the finance minister, he kept referring to the common man in his speech. And I thought that was interesting because, you know, does it matter to the common man as far as medicines are concerned, as far as utilities are concerned? Okay, you know, whether imported items and all of those things. I want to come to that. And first, let me go to Ahmed Hassan Mughal Saab. Ji, Mughal Saab, you heard what Amir Saab is saying. I think what he said was very interesting. Do you agree with him? You think that eventually these measures will yield some sort of a betterment as far as the government is concerned? It should have been done earlier. It's too late. What's your take on it?
It's definitely, you know, there's a lot of perspectives. Each one has their own point of view, and to somehow I agree to what Durrani Saab has said. But the thing is that, you know, bringing a budget at the end of the year and people not being prepared for it and putting so many taxes, indirect taxes. One of the biggest problems is that, you know, the target that they need to achieve, they have not been able to do it through income tax or other ways of taxation. So what they've done is they've increased the indirect taxes, and you know what is it is going to happen is that in the next couple of months you're going to see a double-digit inflation, and it's been unfortunate that with the global supply chain.
So you're
being
saying
affected,
that in the next couple of in the next couple of months you expect there to be an increase in inflation.
Definitely, definitely. I do believe that being so many things that the taxes have increased on, especially utilities, and then you see that whatever is being consumed by the common man as well. They put taxes on poultry as well, and there's some common items, household items as well that have been the taxes have been increased on them as well. So that is going to be very difficult for the government to justify that,
especially in this very real election year for them.
It's definitely, and I was expecting that as whichever government is in power, at the end when they're close to the elections, they usually give relief to the common people, just in case
Perhaps they didn't have a choice. Let's talk about that. I will come back to you. I'm going to go to Dr. Salman Shah. Dr. Saab, overall, as far as let me make it simple. Is this mini budget really going to be a source of problem for the uncommon man, or is it really going to create problems for the common man also? Because this is a phrase which is being thrown around a lot. What's your take on it? Is it? I hope that you heard both Amir Zafar and Ahmed Hassan Mughal about the fact that it might contribute to. According to Amir Saab, he's saying that it will eventually perhaps be good. It should have happened earlier. What's your take on this?
Look, I think there is, if you look at the challenges of the Pakistan economy, I think this mini budget is a small part of it. It's not as big as what happened in terms of the recent surge in international oil prices or the surge in commodity prices, which really had a very huge impact on Pakistan import bill. And our current account deficit then also went out of line with our projections, and we had to kind of restrain the growth which was taking off. So that was the major element which has, in the last 3 or 4 months, if you say what is the big thing which has happened, it is that international prices and its impact on the Pakistani economy. As far as this mini budget is concerned, it's essential to meet some of the IMF conditions, and this is something which has been agreed at the staff level, and I think it is going to be presented to the board in the early January. So if you look at the total budget,
Can you hear me?
The finance minister has clearly said that out of the 350-odd billion rupees concessions which were withdrawn, 240 billion is something which can be refunded and also adjusted. I can hear you.
To interject, as far as, do you think that these measures that have been taken at the behest of the IMF now should have perhaps come sooner and they've come too late?
Well, I think this is an ongoing, problems, and as these problems happen, you have to take action. Maybe we needed to do it in the budget, but at that time we didn't have this big surge in international prices. So the surge in international prices is something which is very critical for us. But in any case, if you look at the size of the economy is worth almost 60,000 billion rupees. And based on that economy, even if there is an increase in taxes of about 300 billion odd increase in taxes, which is in any case going to be refunded or adjustable, it is less than 0.5% of the total production of the country. So I think we are really talking about something which is, yes, it's going to be uncomfortable for some people who are used to tax-free regime, But now they will have to go through a process of documentation in which they will have to pay the tax and then get it refunded. And I think most countries in the world have done it, even though for the traders community or the business community, it may be somewhat unpleasant. But this is something which the IMF has been asking for the last 15, 20 years. And since we have had 22 programs with the IMF, the IMF
but Salman Sahab, it clearly doesn't suit the government to do this at this time. Because certainly, you know, that they're going into their election year, and for them to face that brunt of unpopularity that might follow this kind of increase in inflation and price hike, it's certainly a bold step, wouldn't you say?
I don't think there will be that much inflation because of the mini budget. The mini budget, as I explained, is less than 0.5% of the total output of the country.
Okay.
And even
right,
if we
fair enough. Let me come
this,
back to you. On that note, let me come back to you. Ji, Amir Sahab, do you agree? I mean, according to what Dr. Salman Shah is saying, he's saying that, you know, it really isn't that much. And if you look at it, it's because of the surge in international prices, which is what the government has been saying consistently now for a while. So what do you say to that?
How dare I not agree with Salman Shah Sahab, but let me beg to differ on a few points.
Ji.
Yes, to qualify it, yes, I agree 100 times that, you know, the size of this, what we are trying to do in terms of 300 billion odd taxes being raised, it's not much and should not really fundamentally impact much.
Okay.
But I think really we need to get finer and deeper into how our economy reacts and how inflation, rural and urban, you know, is created. Okay. So I think, you know, somebody wrote in one of our think groups when this mini budget came about this morning that, you know, really, I went to the market and the guy said, oh, sir, ande, you know, the eggs are actually getting more expensive. And he said, well, the budget hasn't been implemented yet. No, it's an impact. So you know what is going to happen is that the urban reaction to this is going to be that of a cheat. But I don't think the larger rural economy, which, you know, let's say even if you account it's about 35–40%, that's not going to be direct impact. There are two other things which I think we need to be very, on the issue of doing relief, which Mughal mentioned. I mean, this government has already come out as somewhat atypical. I mean, is it naivety or is it planned? For example, accepting a general bodies or local bodies election where they fundamentally lost out, right? I mean, that's okay. So they've piloted it and they're doing some reforms. So this budget coming at this time to me is not really an issue. I think two things that really, I mean, while we talk about where is this going to be collected. Now, Mughal said about withholding, and the fact that we are actually increasing, you know, sort of the withholding regime. I think actually a lot of these taxes, if you realistically look at it, are doing two things. And I think that's really what the budget's aim. The first is documentation of economy, right? Because, and that only can be done, but please hold on, that's not my final, my point is that it can only be done if we have control of point of sale, which we don't. Right? So that's why I think mostly it's thought these are presumptive taxation galore happening here. I think the second thing, sorry, quickly, I mean, somebody asked me another question about solar panels, you know, why are they
Yes, I want to come to that. I've also heard that. I think it's been circulating. I want to come to that. Let me go to Ishfaq Yusuf Tola, who's also an economist. Thank you for being with us. Ishfaq sir, do you agree? I mean, to me, a simple question. I'm not an economist. I don't have an economic background, and I want to admit that. But to someone who just wants to understand what's going on, and I think everybody does, every person, common, uncommon, however, wants to understand what's going on as far as this mini budget is concerned. Do you think it's a small percentage, which is what Dr. Salman Shah is saying, which is what the finance minister also said? Is it not going to make much difference? That is my simple question.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'm not an economist, I'm a chartered accountant, but have a close working with the economy of Pakistan. So I know the facts and figures of economy and moving and shaking of what we are doing and what we have done in the past. In my humble view, what Salman...
Apologies, I get this information which is inaccurate. Ji.
So what I'm saying, actually, what Salman Saab is saying, is actually correct that only 5% of 0.5% of your GDP is going to be implemented and the exemptions will be withdrawn. but the consequences are far-reaching. Basically, it is just because of the fact that the policies of the government ab initio when they took over, they have not taken any direction. I mean, the real myth of this government was that they will come and they will straighten and they will correct the wrongdoings of economy, what was done by the previous regimes. Nonetheless, 3.5 years has been passed, and I don't think we are close to any correction of economy. And in fact, we are going down the drain. Going back to what economy is required as far as we look at the picture today, I think it's a dismal picture which we are looking at. Nonetheless, as the other fellow and learned participant has said, that the documentation of economy is the key. And basically, we are facing two challenges. One, a political challenge, and the other one is shutter power. We are facing a political challenge as far as...
Ashfaq Sahab, is it going to make a difference or not?
It will make a difference unless but we have to pull our socks. Basically, we have to implement the policies just to correct the economy. We know that we have to pay $15 billion per annum as a debt servicing on our foreign loans. But we have to, at the end of the day, we have to see what our political direction is, what is our foreign policy, and that's where we can generate foreign direct investment. But we have to stabilize our currency. Right now, we need at least $10 billion to stabilize our currency. We have injected $7 billion around in the open market to stabilize the dollar. Yet we are not successful of stabilizing it. The inflation is skyrocket. So with these ingredients, you cannot correct your economy. So in my humble view, we have to have, with this huge parallel base, we have to have a low interest rate and a controlled parity.
Right. Okay. Ashfaq Sahab, let me come back to you. I have to go to Ahmed Hassan Mughal Sahab and then Dr. Salman Shah. Ji, Ahmed Sahab, do you think, according to him, he's saying it is going to make a difference? But for the government to do it at this time, it clearly means that they had little option.
Definitely, because it's an election year coming up and putting so many taxes. Definitely, if you come into numbers, it's 1.5% of the economy. But what happens, what to the common man? How does it affect that?
Yes,
if there's inflation, then it doesn't matter, if it's 0.5% or 5% of the economy, but everybody's going to be affected.
Does it matter if I want to go and get medicines? Is it only imported medicines? Is it just
It's actually not on imported medicines. It's on raw material, because mostly what our raw material
is. So it will mean an increase across the board.
And then it's going to be, they're going to increase the prices, and then there's going to be widespread, people are going to be against it, that the government has increased the prices and they put taxes on that, and this is the reason. So it doesn't affect, whatever, when they increase the taxes on raw material, the producer is going to pass it on to the consumer. So, there's going to be a huge hue and cry about it. So, and the thing that they want to put in is that they want to put people into the tax net. They want to increase the tax net. So why would anyone want to be, this is one of the primary reasons that nobody wants to come into the tax net, is because, first of all, there is a big issue with FPR and the taxpayer. So what they do is they try to squeeze out as much as possible from the taxpayer instead of going after new people. It creates an uneven business environment, and they do not have the resources. They do not, and even if I'm sure that a person like me is also getting someone to hiring someone to fill out the tax forms. So how could anyone else, who's not that literate, or who's doing a lot of business, people are over here who are not able to, do their own taxes. Most of the people don't do their own taxes. So, they have to hire someone. So it's all a difficult, very difficult situation. They have to make, as long as you keep on increasing the tax rate.
According to you, in your opinion, do you think that they had any option in the first?
Definitely. I don't think that, at bringing it at this time, out
or
of
any other government.
On any government, they wouldn't have had. They've been. The thing is that you have to have ample time to negotiate. So, they were right at the end, and they didn't have any other option. I think that's why they've passed on so many taxes.
Okay, let me go to Dr. Salman Shah. Salman Sahab, do you think that they've left it? Do you think that would you agree that the government left it too late? Do you think that, perhaps this should have come at earlier on when the budget itself came? Which is what Amir Saab said earlier, this is too late in the day, and of course it doesn't suit the government when, of course, we are looking at local body polls also. There's a schedule for that now. Overall, it seems like the government had little option. Any other government in their place perhaps would they have done it sooner?
I mean, if you allow me a couple of points, I can
please.
Talk about that, and then I'll answer your question. Number one, I think we are talking as if Pakistan is the most heavily taxed country in the world. I mean, look at our tax to GDP ratio is less than 10%. I mean, it's even in the subcontinent, we are the lowest tax-paying country in the subcontinent. So as to say that everything is being squeezed out of the people, I think it is a bit of an exaggeration. We are a very low tax country. We are putting in a system of general sales tax for almost now 20 years, and some of our sectors were exempted from the sales tax. Now it is being brought into the sales tax net, and there will be a refund and there will be an adjustment. As far as Amir talked about the prices of eggs, I mean, if you go to your favorite shopkeeper, maybe you shop around a little bit, because the price of eggs should not really go up, even if these in a market where there is enough competition, this half a percentage increase should not come into every
I think he meant the overall perception is that things are going to go up anyway.
Yes. So I think the consumer has to shop around. Consumer has to give resistance to this kind of power, which can just boost prices. So ultimately, if it is based on just a perception, it will not hold on. The real thing is that looking at 2022, oil prices, I think, are coming down slightly. The commodity boom is over. The commodity prices will come down, and overall the inflation will ease. But just talking about the mini budget as the mother of all evils is, I think, a bit of an exaggeration, and we should take it in proper perspective. Secondly, I think the main issue is, which is very important.
According to the government is saying, and of course we've had the Prime Minister say this again and again also. According to him yesterday in the National Assembly also, the ruckus was about the fact that it's really about the opposition. It's about why we're doing this is because you made us do this, and you did it or we did it. There is that whole debate that keeps happening in the Assembly. We saw what happened yesterday also. So do you think that is the proper perspective to look at overall as far as things are concerned, that we are where we are because of the other governments, successive governments, because of course as far as PTI is concerned, this is their first time. And the
I mean, it was a bit ironic to see people who really were in charge of the energy sector talking about how we have given up our sovereignty to the IMF. I mean, one wonders that when you were signing those contracts and at double the price of the world prices, weren't we giving away our sovereignty to some companies overseas? And so I think that if you look at the structural problems which we face today, they are man-made problems. These have been created. If you look at our circular debt, the biggest contribution right now is due to those projects which we have just most recently put in place, and which the capacity payments have just ballooned like anything. And the price of the energy is so much that without a subsidy, no industry can actually take that price.
Okay, fair enough. Let me
the
come
same
back to you.
people who were responsible for this, they are the most vocal about losing our sovereignty. So I think that's very ironic.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. Ji, Amir Saab. The eggs, I think the perception issue. I think
Well,
I think he's answered that.
On the eggs issue, let me just say to Salman Saab that Salman Saab, if I shop around, my transport, and that's again part of my consumption expenditure goes up. And so, you know, anyways,
Yeah,
that was, I
That's
understand
it.
his point, but I think the point he's trying to make is
Yes,
fair,
ji.
that actually fundamentally the price of eggs should not, and that was exactly
Yeah.
what I was trying to say,
Ji.
that there is a lot of difference between how individual retailers and wholesalers will react to this without any cost to them. That was my main
Okay.
point.
Right, okay. Fair enough. Ji, let me come back to you. Ji, Ashfaq Saab, overall, as far as the mini budget is concerned, you were saying that, you know, and Salman Saab is saying, and everyone is saying that really there doesn't seem to be, that the government didn't have any option but to go for this move. And eventually, you know, perhaps in a couple of months, we will see results that may be favorable. Do you agree to that? Okay, he can't hear me. Gee, Amir Saab, I think the same question to you. Do you think that eventually this may yield some sort of, the government has some goal in mind that they hope that they will be able to achieve before the election that will, you know, perhaps appease their electorate, so to speak?
No, unfortunately, I can't support that. I mean, fundamentally, because I don't think I've heard anything from the government that's cogently supporting what they're doing. For example, again, if I can go back to my example for solar panel, I can find reasons
yeah.
to say, yes, it's a good move, and I can find reasons to say, no, it's a bad move, you know.
Okay.
It's a good move in my mind because if you look at some of these additional sort of taxation that has come around, so for a solar panel, a lot of the solar panels are being smuggled, whether they be at the lower end from the Afghan side
Okay.
or in the higher end in containers misdeclared as something else. And you know, go-downs are full of this, whether you go to, and I don't want to name the big wigs here, but the bottom line is, so what the government is actually telling me, so the good thing is, I'm saying, okay, if they put GST on it, at least they are taxing to some extent what is essentially laissez-faire trade, right?
And the bad thing is that it's not going to encourage the
And the
energy.
second thing is, the other good part of it is, if they are really making it so hard for us to buy a solar panel, then maybe the local solar panel industry should come up. Because the ultimate goal for us is that if we are trying to move to renewable energy and we do not have local industry to support that move to renewable energy, we are creating yet another balance of payments problem. You see, right now, before we were dependent on the price of oil and fossils, now we're going to be dependent on the price of imported equipment that they're putting up, even though the sun is free. So, you know, it's for me, this is sort of, but has the government really thought about all that while doing this? No. You know, the problem, what is happening here is, this is a list drawn up by the Federal Board of Revenue, which is an archaic fossil that needs to be flushed down the toilet. Because this should actually, if this has to be a cogent policy, some of the good things in there need to be discussed in an open element, and vis-a-vis what it does to the industry, what it does to commerce, what it does to our IT, or, you know, what it does to our exports, what it does to our internal trade, that is not being discussed. So this list.
Where should it be discussed? You're saying
So
the
no.
government
So
is-
you know, what is the Federal Board of Revenue? The Federal Board of Revenue is not a policy entity, as sort of
But isn't
rightly
the
said.
policy
They're
coming-
just a pain in the average man's rear end.
but
I mean,
you're
that's
saying-
not right.
But, so you're saying it's not coming from them, it's coming from the FBR, it's not coming from the government, it's not, I mean, because
Well,
of
the
course
government is FBR. I mean, let's be very fair on that.
that's what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
but FBR is not a policy-making entity.
So
And
policy-
since we, you know, Salman Sir should bear me out. We've seen this like over the last 30 years. He and I have been dealing with this. Well, him a little more. But you know, in the end, FBR decides, you know, what to do with the taxes. And if you look, while the government spokesperson was talking this morning, the FBR chairman was on TV. It's not his job to come and defend this. There should be a tax policy panel that should sit out and talk about this. What does he have to? It even further deteriorates the image of the
But do you
government.
think that really matters to the common man?
Oh, it does. Oh, it does.
How?
It is a point of implementation that
I'm
Mughal
going to
made.
go to GM, Ahmed Saab. Do you agree? You think it matters where it comes from, how much it's discussed? Because we've been hearing, of course, as far as the cabinet is concerned, it was fielded in the cabinet, it was discussed, there were reservations that had to be done again. So it seems like it's something that was discussed.
Definitely, you know, it does matter where it comes from, and the perception is that, you know, it's the same perception. You know, they had no other choice. They want to take a $6 billion loan, and for that they're putting the whole kind of the economy under hostage, and increasing taxes. So this has to be looked into. They have to take the stakeholders on board. You're putting so many taxes on so many different industries. Were those people involved in that, or were they the representative of those industries that have been taxed? They have to look at the impact. They have to put in.
But
They have to
Ahmed
discuss.
Saab, it's been very. I mean, you think that if they haven't taken. I mean, if they haven't taken the stakeholders on board, they haven't discussed it the way it should have been discussed. It's too late in the day. Haven't they spent enough time on it to have done all of those things, Salman Saab?
Yeah, I think there are two things over here. Yes, FDR is a rotten organization and we need to improve it. We need to bring a lot of technology over there and we need to minimize the interaction between the taxpayer and the tax authority. And the system should be almost automatic and it should be very fair and equitable, and this is what the whole idea is of bringing technology into FDR and making things simpler. Of course, the bureaucracy of the FDR tries to create things in which they can extract something out of the interaction with the taxpayer, and that is something which we have to stamp out. But having said that, as a matter of principle, if we are going to put a sales tax on all the items, it is being done so that the economy gets documented. So if the solar panels, we have imposed a sales tax, the main idea is that we can have a zero sales tax on it, but still they will have to go through that process of documentation. And this is what has been done with the textile industry. This is what will be done, which is being done for the 5 sectors which used to be exempted from the sales tax and they were zero rated. Now they will pay the tax, but they will get a refund. And we can do the same with the solar panels, because I do
Salman
think that
Saab,
this is the way
fair enough as far as solar panels are concerned. But as with the PMLN saying, we saw Khwaja Asif talk about economic surrender, so to speak. Is this just bravado? Is it just back and forth exchange that happens in the assembly, or is there such a thing as economic surrender? Is there such a thing that the PMLN could have saved, according to him, Pakistan from, which Pakistan is moving towards? When terms like economic surrender are used, terms like independent and independence of our own independence being compromised, all of those things, is this just talk, hyperbole? What is it?
That's what I was saying. It's quite ironic that the same person who was the energy czar who signed all those contracts, he's talking about surrender. But actually, if you look at it, the State Bank of Pakistan is a Pakistani institution. Right. The Parliament of Pakistan is going to decide how much autonomy it has or it should have. The Parliament of Pakistan is going to look at the monetary policy targets which it is going to have. And the Parliament of Pakistan is going to evaluate how well they did or they were not able to do that. The the government of Pakistan is going to constitute the board of the State Bank of Pakistan, and to say that somehow the other State Bank of Pakistan is going to be, it's a surrender to the IMF is total hogwash. I think that's, the Assembly can the next day revoke everything. And you can do it through an ordinance, and you can change the thing.
It all boils down to numbers, doesn't it? I mean, because there was all of this speculation surrounding, like I mentioned earlier, the fact that it came into the cabinet with the allies having reservations, which were then put to rest. And at this time, the government isn't doing great as far as those numbers are concerned. Of course, they do have majority.
Well, I think I'm not going to comment on it, whether they have the numbers or not. I think the government is doing the right thing by bringing it to Parliament, and Parliament should decide on what this is, the autonomy of the State Bank is going to be. But I must say also that this would not have arisen if we had not walked all over the State Bank's autonomy in the past. I mean, there have been instances where the governor state bank has been somebody from the Ministry of Finance. And so if the fiscal policy is going to rule over the monetary policy and then the state bank, whose role is to do the monetary policy, who has to look at the inflation in the country, an institution which is designed to look at stability of the economy, the strength of your currency, all those things are going to be up under the domain of the fiscal policy, which frankly is highly politicized, because all the expenditures which we end up doing in the fiscal side are not managed. So I think on the one hand you need the autonomy of the state bank, and on the other side you also need accountability of the fiscal policy, that all the money which we have spent on lots of projects, did they yield us any returns? I mean, if you look at some of the projects which are being subsidized to the hilt, and look at our investment in lots of our public sector enterprises, billions of rupees of taxpayers' money has been wasted in the public sector enterprises. And who is responsible over there? Haven't we surrendered our sovereignty when that thing comes in? And every day we say, no way are we going to privatize anything, and we will continue to pay these subsidies of trillions of rupees. So I think this is politics, and
I will come back to you, Salman Saab. I have to go to I have to go to Amir Zafar Saab. Ji, Amir Saab. Do you agree with what Salman Saab is saying? He's saying that, of course, it's a circular argument. The government has been saying for a while that they are where they are because of successive governments in the past. Do you think any other government at this time, let's talk about that, if it was PMLN, PPP, any other government at this time with the same kind of international scenario, because the government consistently talks about the price hike inflation that is responsible, the international phenomena of it, which is responsible for what's happening in Pakistan, would have done anything differently at this time? Or could have, sorry. I think that's the question.
The straightforward answer to that is no. I think whichever government was in place, had they been doing exactly what has been happening, I mean, they would be forced to do it. I mean, let's not mince our words about that. But I think that there is an even bigger hyperbole than that, which I think the PTI should have countered by saying that had they, so technically speaking, PTI government with Imran at the helm, I mean our Prime Minister, does enjoy slightly more favorable international relations today than they have in the past, for better or for worse. I mean, I don't ascribe reasons to it. So actually, if I was the government, I would actually come back and tell them that, hey guys, not only would you have to do this, but also your chances of getting the rest of the 6 million may have been doomed. Okay. So I think that, there is that side of it, because I think fundamentally what I have been seeing since the morning and yesterday, the opposition, remember, I mean, people, again, not being individual in terms of our comments, but most of the people who are our politicians are people who won on debates, not on substance, right? So basically, they are very good. It's very easy for the two previous finance minister from PMLN after Dar to get on TV, and if you listen to the diatribe, it's all about snatching the morsel out of the little infant's mouth. I mean, yeah, it's nice, you can say that, but that's not the truth, right? So where are we heading with this? I mean, ultimately, this is something any government would have to do. It's just the reality of it. Doesn't matter who put 2 and 2 together. Yes, Salman Saab is absolutely right. I mean, if they think this is the sale of Pakistan, they should have thought when signing the IPP agreements, right? I mean, they did not. So I think I agree on that. Yeah.
Ji, Ahmed Hassan Saab.
What I would say is that, that whoever was in opposition, they would have opposed this budget even if they would have not put taxes on any items and would have provided probably subsidies on 5 items and no additional taxes, there was still would have been, hue and cry about it. That instead of giving subsidy to 5 items, they should have gone down to 50 items. So I think it's most of the people over there, they do not care about the common man who are people sitting in the parliament. And it's unfortunate for us that, all they want is to have some political point scoring. And whatever the government measures the government would have taken, they would have opposed that. And this is unfortunate for us that, whenever the
You're
people...
saying the optics of it and the role of the opposition is that they would have opposed anything that would have happened.
Definitely they would have opposed anything. And because if they wouldn't have, then it's
because
like they're colluded with them. So, it's for their political sake, they're doing this.
Whether it's, the political... the reasons for doing it political, whatever political, reason they may have for doing it, essentially, you think that they have no reason for opposing this mini budget?
They would have, whenever there's increase of any kind of taxes, they would definitely, they would definitely oppose that. Otherwise, it's for their survival.
Leaving the opposition for the sake of
definitely, they know the situation, they know the current situation of the economy, what position we are in, and they also know that we are at this point that we have no other option to do that. But due to that reason, they have to oppose that.
But don't you think the opposition also know that as far as this government and this move is concerned, it may make them unpopular? They're letting them do it. I mean, in a sense, don't you think there was token opposition, so to speak?
Definitely. I do agree with
Because
that.
we saw Shehbaz Sharif Saab not being there, we saw Bilawal Bhutto absent, we saw Asif Ali Zardari not, overall, of course, I mean, with all due respect to all the other members that were there, but there seems to have been rather a kind of lapse as far as that kind of opposition that could have come.
It doesn't matter to them, they just want, that there has to be someone who has to oppose them, and they're just putting it the numbers.
Amir sir, before I close.
Yeah, very quickly. So, I mean, I loved what you were asking, Mughal, before, that basically, really the opposition right now, and let's make a fair point out of it, it would seem like there is no PPP, there is no PMLN. In fact, they're all trying to subdue this, and it seems like the JYF is on the rise. So maybe the PDM, some people should have listened to Maulana Fazlur Rahman, and I would be more worried about that. So really, there was no substance in the debate, and I apologize. I mean, I would criticize. I call a spade, but actually, there was no substance. The fact that this is a little bit for hodgepodge of how they passed this bill, yes, but really no real opposition.
Right. Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have. Thank you so much for joining us. Amir Zafar Durrani Saab, thank you for being with us. Ahmed Hassan Mughal Saab, thank you for joining us today. Dr. Salman Shah, thank you for making the time. As far as the mini budget is concerned, of course, the opposition would have opposed it anyway. We talked about token opposition. We talked about the fact that regardless of whether there's any meat in the kind of opposition that really just came up from the opposition, it seems to have been a token one, rather, with a lot of key people missing from the assembly at such a crucial time as yesterday. But overall, as far as the government is concerned, would any other government, the question really is, have changed it, done things differently, could have done things differently, or is this something that we have to do? We have to take with a pinch of salt as far as this mini budget is concerned, because of the state of economy, of internally also and globally. That's the question. Thank you so much for being with us today, and thank you for joining us. A very happy New Year.